Everyone knows Michael Jackson as the king of pop, but what if I told you that behind the fame, the moonwalk, and the sold-out stadiums was a hidden world nobody ever fully understood? Mysterious rooms, secret archives, a $750 million business empire, and possessions worth more than most people could ever imagine. Today, we're uncovering Michael Jackson. Hidden fortune, secrets, and legacy. The real story behind the legend, piece by piece. Some of what you're about to see will surprise you. Some of it will completely change how you see him. So don't scroll, don't skip, because by the end of this video, you'll understand Michael Jackson in a way you never have before. More cars, more possessions. And behind the unbelievable lifestyle of Michael Jackson was a financial world that was just as fascinating. You may have heard the stories about Michael Jackson's enormous debts, but there was another side to his wealth. Valuable properties, rare collectibles, artwork, iconic costumes, and business assets worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Some of these treasures became public during investigations. Others only came to light years after his death. This is Michael Jackson's personal clothing. This is what he wore for Billie Jean. So, what exactly was hidden behind the legend of the King of Pop? Let's take a journey through Michael Jackson's most fascinating possessions, secret spaces, artistic creations, and billion-dollar business empire. The home where Michael Jackson became a superstar. Before Neverland became one of the most famous properties in the world, there was another place that played an even more important role in Michael Jackson's story. Havenhurst, located in Encino, California. The Jackson family compound was purchased by Joe Jackson in 1971. But for Michael, this was much more than simply a family home. It was where his future was taking shape. Behind those walls, a young Michael was developing from a gifted performer into one of the biggest solo artists the world had. As his fame grew, the property evolved with him. Private entertainment areas were added, including a movie theater and spaces where music could be developed away from the public eye. It was in this private environment that ideas, melodies, vocal recordings, and creative concepts connected to albums such as Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad were developed. And despite all the rumors surrounding hidden tunnels and secret underground rooms, the real importance of Havenhurst is much simpler. It was a protected family environment where one of the greatest transformations in music history took place. The mysterious archive. Now take a look at this unusual image. It appears to show a hidden room filled with Michael Jackson memorabilia. Glass cases line the walls, displaying objects that resemble some of his most famous stage outfits, including the legendary Thriller jacket. And at the center is a huge golden bust of Michael Jackson, illuminated like the centerpiece of a private museum. It looks almost too perfect. But here's the important question. Was this actually a secret archive belonging to Michael Jackson? Or is the image simply presenting an imagined version of what such a collection could look like? That mystery is what makes the image so fascinating. What do you think? The real hidden room at Neverland. For decades, Neverland Ranch has been surrounded by extraordinary stories. People have talked about underground bunkers, secret tunnels, hidden panic rooms, and rooms supposedly filled with enormous amounts of money. But when you separate internet rumors from documented information, the real story is actually much more interesting. During a search of the property, investigators discovered a small hidden room located behind a closet in Michael Jackson's primary bedroom area. It wasn't some futuristic underground fortress. It appears to have been something much more personal. Michael Jackson lived under an extraordinary level of public attention. Everywhere he went, cameras followed him, fans surrounded him, and his private life was constantly being examined. So having a concealed space where he could simply disappear from the outside world made perfect sense. There is no reliable evidence establishing the elaborate underground networks or high-tech secret vaults that have become part of the internet mythology surrounding Neverland. The reality was less like a science fiction movie and more like the story of a superstar desperately searching for privacy. Michael Jackson had another artistic side. Most people remember Michael Jackson for his voice, his dancing, and his spectacular performances. But there was another creative side of Michael that many people knew very little about. He was also deeply interested in visual art. Away from recording studios and stadiums, Jackson spent years drawing and painting. At one point, an airplane hangar at Santa Monica Airport became a private creative environment where he could work on his artwork away from the public. The collection included drawings, paintings, sketches, and ideas that revealed an entirely different side of his imagination. Years after his death, artist Brett Livingston Strong, one of Jackson's longtime collaborators, helped give the public a glimpse into this lesser-known part of his life. And Michael's interests were surprisingly diverse. He drew historical personalities, architectural structures, gates, keys, thrones, and other elaborate subjects. The real discovery wasn't a collection of paintings stolen from famous artists. It was something far more personal. These were creations produced by Michael Jackson himself. They demonstrated that his creativity wasn't limited to music and dance. He wanted to create worlds visually as much as he wanted to create them through sound. The Jackson-Strong alliance. One of the most overlooked chapters in Michael Jackson's artistic life was his collaboration with Australian artist Brett Livingston Strong. The two eventually established a formal creative partnership known as the Jackson-Strong Alliance. This wasn't simply two artists casually sharing ideas. They had much bigger ambitions. They discussed large-scale artistic projects, bronze sculptures, monumental structures, gallery exhibitions, and other ambitious works of art. Michael contributed his fascination with architecture, historical figures, and dramatic visual concepts. Strong brought the technical experience needed to transform those ideas into large-scale works. They even explored the possibility of producing limited edition artwork that could help raise substantial funds for children's charities around the world. Many of those plans never reached completion. Michael's demanding career and schedule made it difficult to bring every project to life, but the surviving drawings, concepts, and models tell an important story. Michael Jackson approached visual art with the same seriousness and ambition that he brought to his music. The 1993 search that changed everything. Then came 1993. Michael Jackson's carefully protected private world was suddenly exposed to intense international attention following serious allegations involving a child. Law enforcement launched a major investigation, and properties connected to Jackson, including Neverland Ranch, became the focus of extensive searches. Investigators collected thousands of items, including photographs, videotapes, financial documents, and personal records. But an important detail is often overlooked when people retell the story today. According to the documented record described in the source material, investigators did not uncover physical or video evidence that directly incriminated Jackson. The investigation became one of the most traumatic periods of his career. His relationship with the public changed dramatically. Jackson consistently denied wrongdoing and maintained his innocence, while the investigation ultimately ended without criminal charges being filed. But even after it ended, the impact on his private life and public image remained. The 2003 Neverland raid. 10 years later, Neverland was once again at the center of a major investigation. On November 18, 2003, around 70 law enforcement officers arrived at the ranch to execute a search warrant connected to new allegations. Investigators moved through the mansion, offices, amusement areas, and other parts of the enormous property. This time, the investigation eventually resulted in criminal charges and led to the highly publicized 2005 trial. But despite decades of internet rumors, investigators did not uncover some extraordinary underground treasure complex. There were no confirmed science fiction-style vaults filled with money. No secret labyrinth was suddenly revealed. The real story was much more serious. Neverland, once created as a place of fantasy and entertainment, had become a major piece of evidence in a historic legal battle. What the public record actually shows. After the 2003 search, sensational stories spread rapidly. Rumors began appearing online about secret rooms, hidden chambers, and mysterious treasures supposedly discovered inside Neverland. But the official record paints a much more restrained picture. Search inventories and related documents were sealed by the court. That sealing did not automatically mean investigators had discovered some unbelievable secret vault. The records were protected largely because of privacy concerns, particularly those involving minors connected to the case. Investigators did document thousands of household objects, personal belongings, photographs, videos, and other materials. But many of the exaggerated stories circulating online go far beyond what the public record actually establishes. In other words, the reality was a complicated legal investigation, not the treasure hunt that internet mythology later turned it into. Neverland was more than a mansion. When Michael Jackson purchased the Sycamore Valley Ranch in 1988, he wasn't simply purchasing another luxury property. He was creating an environment that reflected his imagination. He renamed it Neverland. The enormous California estate covered more than 2,700 acres and became one of the most unusual private properties in the world. Michael invested millions into transforming it. There was a Ferris wheel, a roller coaster, bumper cars, a zoo, beautiful gardens, and countless other attractions. The idea was to create a place where children, families, and Michael himself could experience a world that felt completely removed from ordinary life. But maintaining such a massive property came at an enormous cost. Neverland required a huge workforce. Groundskeepers, security staff, animal handlers, maintenance workers, and other employees were needed to keep everything operating. As the years passed, those expenses became increasingly difficult to manage. The magical kingdom that Michael had created eventually became part of the financial pressure surrounding the final years of his life. The train, named after his mother. Among all the unusual features of Neverland, one stood out in a particularly memorable way: the private railway. The estate contained a narrow-gauge steam train complete with its own station, and the locomotive carried a very personal name, Catherine. It was named in honor of Michael's mother. This wasn't simply a decorative attraction. The train actually operated around the enormous property, transporting visitors and guests through Neverland. Families, children, celebrities, and other visitors could ride through the estate as though they had entered a real-life fantasy world. The railway perfectly captured Michael Jackson's vision. He wasn't simply building a house. He was creating an experience. Every detail, from the amusement rides to the train named after his mother, contributed to the world he imagined. The $1.8 million Thriller jacket. Michael Jackson's clothing eventually became valuable enough to compete with major works of art. One of the best examples came in June 2011. The famous red and black leather jacket worn by Michael during the Thriller music video went up for auction, and the final price was extraordinary: $1.8 million. The jacket had been designed by Deborah Nadulman Landis and was one of only 2 used during the production. Michael had given this particular jacket to his trusted costume designers, Michael Bush and Dennis Tompkins. When it sold for $1.8 million, the auction demonstrated something important. Michael Jackson's costumes were no longer simply clothes. They had become pieces of entertainment history. The jacket represented one of the most recognizable moments of the 1980s and had become a physical symbol of the Thriller era. The designers behind Michael Jackson's image. Behind Michael Jackson's unforgettable appearance were 2 highly skilled costume designers, Michael Bush and Dennis Tompkins. For more than 2 decades, the pair worked closely with Jackson. Together, they helped create the military-inspired jackets, rhinestone-covered outfits, armbands, shoes, and other costumes that became essential parts of his identity. But their work involved much more than making clothes look impressive. Michael's performances were physically demanding. His costumes had to survive intense choreography, rapid changes, bright stage lights, and hours of performance. The designers developed specialized fabrics and footwear that allowed him to move freely while maintaining the dramatic appearance of his costumes. Their work even contributed to the footwear used for Jackson's famous gravity-defying lean during Smooth Criminal. Michael Jackson understood something very few performers understood at the same level. A superstar isn't only heard. A superstar is seen. And Bush and Tompkins helped turn Michael's visual identity into something the entire world could recognize instantly. the glove that became a global symbol. Few objects in entertainment history are as instantly recognizable as Michael Jackson's single white glove. Decorated with sparkling rhinestones, it became one of the strongest visual symbols ever associated with a performer. Its most famous moment came during the 1983 Motown 25 television special. Michael walked onto the stage wearing the glove, a black sequined jacket, and then performed Billie Jean. That was the moment millions of people witnessed something extraordinary. Michael performed the moonwalk on television for the first time. The glove wasn't valuable because it contained some secret treasure. Its value came from what it represented: one performance, one unforgettable moment, and one image that became permanently connected to the king of pop. Michael had taken an ordinary piece of clothing and transformed it into an international symbol. If you're enjoying the story so far, don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps support the channel. The night Michael Jackson won 8 Grammys, February 28, 1984, became one of the most remarkable nights of Michael Jackson's career. At the 26th Annual Grammy Awards, Jackson arrived wearing a sparkling military-style outfit and dark sunglasses. By the end of the evening, he had won an astonishing 8 Grammy Awards. The success was heavily driven by Thriller, which had become an unstoppable force in popular music. That single-night achievement became legendary. Throughout his career, Jackson would eventually receive 13 Grammy Awards from 38 nominations. But the 8 awards he collected in 1984 represented something much bigger than trophies. The Thriller Revolution, released in 1982, Thriller wasn't simply a successful album. It changed the music industry. Songs such as Billie Jean, Beat It, and Thriller became worldwide hits. The album broke sales records and eventually became recognized as the best-selling album of all time. But its impact went far beyond sales. Michael Jackson changed the way the world viewed music videos. Instead of treating them as short promotional clips, he turned them into cinematic productions. The famous Thriller short film ran for around 14 minutes and combined storytelling, choreography, special effects, and music. Its impact was so significant that the Library of Congress selected it for preservation in the National Film Registry. Jackson had transformed the music video into an event, and the formula he created continues to influence performers decades later. The business move that changed everything. Michael Jackson wasn't only a performer. He was also a remarkably ambitious businessman. In 1985, he made one of the smartest financial decisions of his career. He purchased the ATV music publishing catalog for approximately $47.5 million. And this wasn't an ordinary collection of songs. The catalog included publishing rights connected to more than 200 Beatles compositions. At the time, some people questioned whether Jackson was spending too much money. But Michael understood something extremely important. Music wasn't just entertainment. Music copyrights could become incredibly valuable long-term assets. A decade later, Jackson took the next major step. In 1995, ATV was merged with Sony's publishing operation. The deal reportedly gave Jackson around $110 million, while leaving him with a 50% ownership stake in the newly formed Sony/ATV. Michael Jackson had now moved into an entirely different financial league. He wasn't simply earning money from performing. He owned a major piece of the business behind some of the world's most valuable music. Sony/ATV and the $750 million deal for years. Jackson's 50% stake in Sony/ATV remained one of the most important assets connected to his financial empire. Even after his death in 2009, the investment continued to generate significant value for his estate. Then, in 2016, Sony exercised its contractual right to purchase the Jackson estate's remaining 50% interest. The price? $750 million. That number made headlines around the world. But there was an important detail that often got lost. The transaction did not mean that every part of Michael Jackson's music catalog had been sold. According to the source material, the agreement did not include Jackson's own master recordings, nor did it include his personal publishing company, MyJack Music. So while the $750 million deal was enormous, It wasn't the complete sale of Michael Jackson's musical legacy. Instead, it provided his estate with a massive amount of liquidity, while important parts of his creative legacy remained separate. Havenhurst. Even after Michael purchased Neverland in 1988 and shifted much of his personal life toward the Santa Ynez Valley, Havenhurst never stopped being important to the Jackson family. It remained the home of his mother, Katherine Jackson, and continued to serve as a family base. Unlike Neverland, which eventually changed ownership and lost many of its famous attractions, Havenhurst remained closely connected to the Jackson family. The property carries memories from the earliest days of the Jackson 5. It was connected to the family's rise to fame, Michael's development as an artist, and the creative period that produced some of his most important music. In many ways, Havenhurst represents something Neverland never could. It represents the beginning. Before the enormous estates, before the worldwide fame, before the billion-dollar business deals, there was a family home where a young Michael Jackson was discovering what he could become. The legacy. Behind the fortune. Michael Jackson's story cannot be measured only by album sales or concert performances. Behind the king of pop was a world of private properties, artwork, costumes, business investments, unforgettable possessions, and creative ambitions. Some stories surrounding him became exaggerated over time. Some remained mysteries, and others were supported by documented records. But together, they reveal a fascinating side of Michael Jackson that is often overlooked. He wasn't simply an entertainer. He was an artist, businessman, designer, collector, and visionary who constantly tried to create something bigger than what already existed. His life ended in 2009, but the things he created, from music and dance to visual imagery and business investments, continue to influence the world. Michael Jackson may be gone, but the world he created is still echoing across generations. Behind every locked door was a man just trying to disappear from the world watching him. That's the Michael Jackson most people never got to see. We dig up stories like this every week here on Brit Soundscapes, so don't walk away yet. Hit subscribe, drop a like, and let us know in the comments which secret surprised you most.